الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. So tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we'll start with al-Hadith al-Thani, the second hadith from Imam al-Nawawi's 40 hadith. And this hadith is famous, titled as the Hadith of Jibril, the Hadith of Jibril alayhi salam. And this is the hadith that I was referring to last week, as some of the ulama, the scholars, refer to this hadith as As-Sunnah, As-Sunnah, the mother of the Sunnah, is this hadith, not in al-a'mal bin-niyat. That was a mistake on my part. The Sunnah, As-Sunnah, is this hadith, Hadithu Jibril alayhi salam. The first hadith was إنما الأعمال بالنيات, that deeds are by intentions, the famous hadith. And the other statements that are said about that hadith, that hadith enters into 70 different chapters of fiqh. That contained in 70 different chapters of fiqh is the hadith that of all deeds are by intentions. This hadith, which is known as As-Sunnah, and it is the second hadith in 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. And in the beginning he says, An Umar ibn al-Khattab, Aydan. As the first hadith was narrated on Umar ibn al-Khattab, Shaykh Ibrahim's not here, and Abi Hafs, right? He had a question about Abi Hafs, if Hafs was his son. Umar didn't have a son named Hafs. He had a daughter named Hafsa. He didn't have a son named Hafs. So his kunya was Abu Hafs, even though he didn't have a son named Hafs, which is permissible. And there are other ulama who have had a kunya and they don't have necessarily a child with that name. So his kunya is Abi Hafs, an Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs. That was the first hadith. The second hadith is also on Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. قال بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم إذ طلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب شديد سواد الشعر. Umar said, one day we were sitting with the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, and a man came up to us, and then he describes him that he had his clothes were very white and his hair was jet black, we'll say. لا يرى عليه أثر السفر ولا يعرفه منا أحد. He didn't look like he was traveling. He had no signs on him. It didn't look like he was traveling, and nobody knew him. حتى جلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه ووضع كفيه على فخذيه وقال يا محمد أخبرني عن الإسلام. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الإسلام أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. قال صدقت. قال فعجبنا له يسأله ويصدقه. قال فأخبرني عن الإيمان. قال أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. قال صدقت. قال فأخبرني عن الإحسان. قال أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. قال فأخبرني عن الساعة. قال ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. قال فأخبرني عن أماراتها. قال أن تلد الأمة ربتها وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العالة رئاء أشياء يتطاولون في البنيان. قال ثم انطلق فلبثت مليا ثم قال لي يا عمر أتدري من السائل؟ قلت الله ورسوله أعلم. قال فإنه جبريل أتاكم يعلمكم دينكم. رواه مسلم. This is one of the longer hadith in Arba'in al-Nawawi, 40 hadith al-Nawawi. And it's only maybe 3 or 4 long ahadith with this length. And this is one of the longer ones. And there are books, there are whole books written on just this one hadith, explaining this one hadith from the many benefits. That's why some of the ulama refer to it as As-Sunnah. As what is summarized in this hadith, the rest of the Sunnah explains. The religion is summarized in this hadith, and the rest of the Sunnah explains what comes in this hadith. So what Imam an-Nawawi did was, the first hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, the first hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. These are by intentions, are but by intentions. And every person will have what they intended. The second, and the first hadith in Sahih Muslim is this hadith, Hadith Jibril. So what Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, what he did was, he opened his book, making a jam, combining it between the two Sahihain, between Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. The first hadith in Sahih Bukhari is the first hadith in 40 hadith, Arba'in an-Nawawi. The first hadith in Sahih Muslim is the second hadith in 40 hadith of Imam an-Nawawi. So what he did was, as Imam al-Baghawi did before him, rahimahullah, Imam al-Baghawi did the same thing. He will open up, he started his book, Sharh al-Sunnah, not Imam al-Barbahari, Imam al-Baghawi, rahimahullah, with the first hadith being from Sahih al-Bukhari, the first hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari, and the second hadith being from Sahih Muslim. Now this hadith has a qissa, a story behind why it was narrated. And Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, his explanation is a lot more detailed. And most of the explanations of 40 hadith, they refer back to Jawami al-Ulum al-Hikam. Imam Rajab, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, his explanation for the 40 hadith of Imam an-Nawawi, Jami al-Ulum al-Hikam. So he brings the qissa on why, on the narrating of the point of this hadith, on how this hadith was narrated. And he says, عن يحيى ابن يعمر قال كان أول من قال في القدر بالبصرة معبد الجهني. Ya'mar is from Basra, Iraq. So he says the first person to speak about al-qadr. We all know al-qadr, right? Al-qadr, the preordainment, it's divine, it's decreed, the decree of Allah. He said the first people to talk about this, al-qadr, bil-Basra, in his area, as he was from Iraq, he said it was a person named Ma'bad al-Juhani. Ma'bad al-Juhani. He was the first person to talk about it. When they say talk about al-qadr, there's a problem. They had a problem with the qadr, with accepting the qadr. The first person in his area, which was Iraq, was a person, Ma'bad al-Juhani. And Ma'bad al-Juhani was from the Kibar of the Qadariyah. He was from those people who helped establish this bid'ah, the bid'ah of the qadr, as they're going to discuss now. As their problem with the qadr, al-Qadariyah, it is a group of people who deny the qadr of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Even with the ayat, even with this hadith, they deny the qadr. So they say that the actions, when a slave does actions, that Allah didn't know he was going to do the action until after he did the action. And they're called al-Qadariyah, and they have different levels of them. So al-Qadariyah, he was from the main people. Ma'bad al-Juhani was from the main people who started this group of innovation, bid'ah. So he said, فَانْطَلَقْتُ أَنَا وَحُمَيْد ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Himyari Hajjain or Mu'tamidain. He says, so him and another brother by the name of Humayd Abd al-Rahman al-Himyari, they went to make Hajj or Umrah. He says, فَقُلْنَا, between them, these two, Ya'mar and Humayd al-Himyari, he said, فَقُلْنَا لَوْ لَقِينَا أَحَدًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم فَسَأَلْنَاهُ عَمَّا يَقُولُ هَؤُلَاءِ فِي الْقَدْرِ. He said, when we go to make Hajj or Umrah, he said, if we meet one of the Sahaba, one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, then we're going to ask them, whoever we meet, we're going to ask them about the statement that they're saying about the Qadr, about denying the decree of Allah Jalla wa'ala. And this shows, number one, as I mentioned, the explanations that people, to return to or going back to the people of knowledge, as they were going to make Hajj, number one, or Umrah, but also they were looking forward to meeting someone from Ahl al-Ilm. They were looking forward to meeting a person of knowledge so they could ask them about some of the problems that they were having in their area, which is not a problem. Sometimes people complain that brothers want to go sit with the Mashaykh when they go to make Hajj and Umrah, but this is something that the Salaf used to do. They would meet up. They came from different countries all over the world, and when they would make Hajj, they would meet up with people after Hajj, and they would take Hadith from them and learn from them as much as they could during those sittings. So this is something that is a good thing. He says, so we're going to ask him about the things that they're saying with regards to the Qadr. He says, فَوُفِّقَ لَنَا عَبْدُ اللَّهِ ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab دَاخِلًا الْمَسْجِدِ. He said, so by the tawfiq of Allah, Allah blessed us that when we got there, we saw Abdullah ibn Umar al-Khattab, the famous Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Umar. They saw him coming inside the masjid. He says, فَكْنَفَتْ إيش؟ أيوه داخل في المسجد. طيب فكنفته أنا وصاحبي أحدنا عن يمينه والآخر عن شماله. So we surrounded him, Abdullah bin Umar. We surrounded him. They went to make Hajj or Umrah, but after that they said, if we see one of the Sahaba, we're going to ask them about what they're saying about denying the decree of Allah, that there is no decree. People do what they want to do, and then Allah knows. Allah didn't know the person's going to do. Basically, they're saying Allah doesn't know the actions of a person until after they do it, which is a denial of the Qadr of Allah Jalla wa'ala. And there are two extremes where they say these people deny the Qadr, that it didn't happen. The Jabariyah, they say that the slave has, which is another group, they say that the slave is forced to do everything. So these people in their area, they sat and surrounded Abdullah bin Umar. He says, فَظَنَنْتُ أَنَّ صَاحِبِي سَيَكِلُ الْكَلَامَ إِلَيَّ. He said, and I felt like, when we were there, I felt like my Sahaba, the one that I came there with, I felt like he wanted me to start speaking. This shows the detail, just the detail that they give when they're narrating. It's a trust, it's an amana. When you're narrating a story, that you give the truth and you don't leave anything out. He said, so I felt like my companion that I was with, he wanted me to begin talking. فَقُلْتُ أَبَا عَبْدُ الرَّحْمَنِ إِنَّهُ قَدْ ظَهَرَ قِبْلَنَا نَاسٌ يَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. He said, Abu Abdul Rahman, talking to Abdullah bin Umar. He said, there are people where we're from, in our area, and now he describes them. So he says, there are people who read the Qur'an. There are people who read the Qur'an. And he said, there are people who seek knowledge. The people who read the Qur'an, they seek knowledge. They have and they're not regular, meaning, as it says in the explanations, they're not regular people. They're like learned. They're learned people. It says, وَذَكَرَ مِنْ شَأْنِهِمْ. And he started mentioning different things about this group of people who are the Qadariyah, which is not a praise for them. It's not a praise. It's not a praise for them, because at the end of the day, the Qadariyah are innovators. So he's not praising them, but he's going to ask a question, so he's giving a bayan al-hal, as they say. He's clarifying the reality of their situation. And the reality is that it could be a person who's practicing innovation, who innovated something to the deen of Allah Jalla wa'ala, and that person, at the same time, they have a lot of worship. They pray, extra salawat, they fast every other day. So the apparent look is that these people may be upright and they know the religion, right? Based on the apparent, what's apparent. You can go by what's apparent. So he's giving them what they look like. They're people who seek knowledge. They're people who read the Quran, this, that, and the third. He says, وَأَنَّهُمْ يَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّ لَا قَدَرَ. And they also claim that there is no such thing as qadr. وَأَنَّ الْأَمْرَ unuf. And that all affairs are unuf, which means that basically Allah didn't know what was going to happen before it happened. Even though they read the Quran, they seek knowledge, they do this, they do that, at the same time, they say Allah doesn't have knowledge of a person's actions until after they do the actions. Al-Qadariyya bid'ah. Tayyib. Even though on the apparent they're righteous, they have good adab, they're nice people. Huh? But as Shaykh Abdul Razak said, them being nice people, as it came in one of the books, as he said, in one of the books of the Mu'tazila, which are from this group, the Shaykh told him, when he told him this innovation, he told him, what I told you, don't tell anybody. It's written in their books like this. They're brave, they're bold, they write the stuff in their own books. They narrate their stories. He said, what I told you, don't tell anybody until you've sat in the masjid for 1 year straight. Don't tell anybody what I told you until you sat in the masjid on the pillar, like on one of these poles, for 1 year straight. Why? What's the benefit of sitting in the masjid for 1 year straight before you start teaching? Huh? Huh? Who's observing? He's observing the people coming in and out?
Observing the people that's in the masjid.
He's observing the people that's in the masjid.
He wants to see
Jade.
the mannerism of the people.
Jade. He can follow.
Maybe we can know that he's actually a righteous man.
There you are. Don't tell the people the bid'ah that I taught you until you sit in the masjid for 1 year straight. Once the people see you in the masjid all the time, they're going to build trust for you, as you're always there. Huh? Now when you bring the bid'ah to them, they're more likely they're going to trust what you're saying. And this is written in their books, Ahlul Bid'ah. We're talking about real bid'ah, not a brother who made a mistake. We're not talking about people who make a mistake and then they say, oh, I know. We're talking about Ahlul Bid'ah, who are brave enough to narrate these stories in their own books. He told them after, yes, they read the Quran, they seek knowledge, they do all of this, and at the same time, they claim that there is no such thing as the decree of Allah. There is no qadr. فقال, Abdullah bin Umar said, إذا لقيت أولئك فأخبرهم أني بريء منهم وأنهم براء مني. He said, if you meet these people, tell them, and this is Abdullah bin Umar, the Sahaba, which means bid'ah, it started back in the time of the Sahaba. These people were around in the time of the Sahaba. Abdullah bin Umar, the one who used to try to walk in the footsteps of the Prophet. He said, if you see these people, if you meet these people, tell them that I'm free from them. I have nothing to do with them, and that they have nothing to do with me. Our beliefs are different. Tayyib. I have nothing to do with people who believe that there is no qadr. And those people who believe that, they have nothing to do with me. Abdullah bin Umar. He said, وَالَّذِي يَحْلِفُ بِهِ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ بِنْ عُمَرٍ لَوْ أَنَّ لِأَحَدِهِمْ مِثْلَ أُحْدٍ ذَهَبًا فَانْفَقَهْ مَا قَبِلَ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنَ بِالْقَدْرِ. He said, I swear by Allah, Abdullah bin Umar, the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He said, I swear by Allah, if one of those people who said that there is no qadr, they claim that Allah doesn't know what a person is going to do, they attribute ignorance to Allah Jalla wa'ala. He said, if one of those people, he said, I swear by Allah, if one of those people had gold, they had so much gold that it would equal to the amount of the mountain of Uhud. The mountain of Uhud. If anybody made Hajj or Umrah visiting Medina, Mount Uhud, it's a mountain. It's huge. It's a huge mountain. It's not just. It's a huge mountain. If they had gold the size of Mount Uhud and they gave it in charity, ma qabila Allahu minhu, Allah will not accept it from them. Allah will not accept that charity from them, hatta yu'mina bil qadr, until they believe in the qadr. Why? Why is it not accepted? Until they believe in the qadr. Allah won't accept it. Abdullah ibn Umar said, if they gave all of that gold the size of a mountain, it wouldn't be accepted until they believed in the qadr. In the qadr. Al-qadr is from the usul al-iman. The pillars of iman are 6. right? As it comes in the Hadith. The pillars of Iman, there's 6 pillars of Iman. What Muslim believes in only 5? I believe in Allah, I believe in the messengers, but the angels, hey, it's not complete. You can't choose and take out and take some. These are usul iman. So he says that it wouldn't be accepted until they believe in the qadr. ثم قال, and then Abdullah bin Umar, and then he said, حدثني أبي Umar ibn al-Khattab. He said, my father narrated to me, قال بينما نحن عند رسول الله فذكر الحديث بطوله. He said, my father narrated to me this hadith now, Hadith Jibril. So he did all of that. He told that whole story. That whole story was told for one, and then he narrated this whole hadith. He narrated to him the whole hadith of Jibril now, this long hadith, only for one portion, where Jibril asked him, what is Iman? And inside Iman, the Prophet ﷺ said that Iman is, and he mentioned the things, and he said, well, qadr, khayrihi wa sharrihi. So this hadith is a serious hadith. So in the beginning, he says, بينما نحن جلوس عند النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام فقد كان الصحابة رضي الله عنهم من عاداتهم ومن عادتهم أنهم يجلسون إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام يتعلمون منه ويسترشدون منه ويسألونه عن أمور دينهم ودنياهم. And this is from the custom or the practice of the Sahaba, that they would sit and they would go to the Prophet ﷺ, and they would sit with him, ask him questions, seek guidance from the religious aspect and from the dunya, worldly affairs also. And this is from their norm. This is normal for them, that they would seek knowledge. They weren't comfortable. It wasn't okay. And Islam doesn't promote it. Islam doesn't promote ignorance. Islam does not promote ignorance. That's not the example that the Prophet ﷺ left us, nor the Sahaba, nor the Tabi'een. There's no precedence for it okay to be ignorant. Yes, there are some people who are ignorant. It happens. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the norm. We shouldn't feel comfortable. We shouldn't feel comfortable going to sleep knowing that we're ignorant about something of our Lord Jalla wa'ala or our Prophet ﷺ. So they would come and they would sit to learn from the Prophet ﷺ. In one of these sittings where they were sitting with the Prophet ﷺ, دخل عليهم رجل في صورة عجيبة. In one of these sittings, a man came in. And according to them at this time, his appearance was strange. It wasn't normal. It might be normal now because a person would travel all the way across the world and he can walk in front of you and you would never tell. You could never tell he was traveling, right? But in this time when the hadith is being narrated, this is something that is strange, that a man travels like this and no one knew that he was traveling. He says, اطلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب شديد سواد الشعر. And now he describes the man, لا يرى عليه أثر السفر ولا يعرفه منا أحد. فهذا من العجائب. This is something that was seriously strange. This was not normal. And Medina right now is small. Medina is small. Medina is not that big. Medina is not that big. And then back then it was even smaller as it expanded throughout the years, but it's still small right now. It's like one big circle. It's not real big. And then it was even smaller. He says, why? What's strange? Number one, he didn't look like he was traveling. And number two, nobody who was sitting there with the Prophet ﷺ knew who he was. So either A, he's a traveler, or B, he's not a traveler, right? He doesn't look like a traveler, right? And if he's not a traveler, then he must be from this city, right? He didn't fit either description. He's not a traveler, he doesn't look like he was traveling, and nobody here knows him. Like, where did he come from? And this is why it was considered something seriously ajib. It was strange. It was something strange. It wasn't normal. The norm during this time is when people came from traveling, you could see it on them. Dust, dirt. They might have traveled for 1 month. They're not intact. the garment's not still pure white, right? This wasn't normal. And due to the fact it wasn't normal, everybody noticed. And therefore, it brought more attention to the situation. Everybody with me? It raised eyebrows. He's not traveling. He can't be traveling. Not with a garment that white. A garment that white, he can't be traveling. Hair jet black, no dust in his hair, anything, he can't be traveling. The people that come here, when they travel, you can see it on him. It's clear. He's a traveler. This man can't be traveling. At the same time, nobody knows who he is. Ajib, strange. You can't use our day and time to try to make a comparison, because we can travel from here to across the world, right? And you wouldn't be able to tell. A person wouldn't be able to tell. So he says, Shadidu bayad al-thiyab. His clothes were clean, pure white, no stains, anything. Shadidu sawad al-sha'r. His hair was jet black. Some of the explanations, it says it was jet black, which means, what does black hair generally point to? Youth. And that's what Sheikh Uthaymeen says. Shows that he was young. Shabab. He didn't say that here. Sheikh Fawzan doesn't mention that here. He just says, Fi Sura Jamila. It was beautiful. He had a beautiful look to him. Sheikh Uthaymeen says that it showed that he was young. He had youth. It was a youthful look. As his angel Jibril, but he came in the form of a man. He came in the form of a man. So now, from these two descriptions, that he came with pure white, his hair was jet black, it says, في هذا دليل على أن طالب العلم حينما يحضر إلى مجلس العلم ينبغي له أن يتجمل. As this hadith, inside of this hadith, two things are going on. Teaching and learning. Teaching and learning. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that was Jibril, he came to teach you your religion. So now, Jibril ﷺ is coming in the form of a teacher and a student. He's playing both roles. He's playing both roles. He's teaching and he's learning. So he says this shows that when a person goes to learn, when they go to learn, that they should have a good look. They should dress properly. They should look good, right? They should put on something nice. And the narrations, like Imam Malik, rahimahullah, the narration when Imam Malik said that his mother would dress him up. When he would go out, his mother would dress him up like the ulama would dress during his time. Put the imam on him. Right? When he went to learn, they would dress him. His mother would dress him up like the ulama would dress during his time. When he would go to sit in the circles of ilm, the circles of knowledge. So Jibril here, alayhi salam, is showing that when a person goes to learn, that they should put on something nice. They should look nice when they go to sit and learn. وَأَنْ يَأْتِي بِصُورَةٍ نَظِيفَةٍ جَمِيلَةٍ. They should be clean. This is to the best of a person's ability. Sometimes a person may be coming from work, or they're coming from somewhere where they don't have a chance to clean up or whatever. But if a person has the ability, then they should come with their best. لأن جبريل جاء معلما ومتعلما. Because in this situation, Jibril is playing he's playing two people, not two people, but he's showing two roles, a teacher and a student. ومن ذلك أنه علمهم كيف يأتون إلى مجلس الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام. He's showing them how should a person come to the Messenger عليه الصلاة والسلام when they want to learn. And he's going to go into more detail. And then he says, Sheikh Fawzan, والإقاء بالعلماء ينبغي أن يكون له استعداد. When a person goes to sit and learn, that they should what? They have to prepare themselves. A person has to prepare to go learn. Mentally, you have to be prepared mentally, and based on the Hadith Jibril, physically also. Out of respect. As some of the ulama, the Salaf, if I'm not mistaken, Imam Malik, he wouldn't teach Hadith. He wouldn't teach Hadith until he made ghusl first. He would go home, make wudu, make ghusl, and then come back and teach. Some of them, if they were standing up, and someone came to ask the question, they wouldn't ask the question until they sat down. All out of respect for narrating the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and out of ihtiram, out of respect for knowledge, He says, so, ijlal al-ulama, respect for the ulama is something that We have to keep in mind لأنك إذا لم تجل العالم وتحترمه لم تستفيد من علمه. If a person doesn't respect the teacher, if they don't respect their sheikh, and they don't show respect to their sheikh, then they're not going to benefit from his knowledge. فقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام فقوله he says فجلس إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام فجلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So now he's teaching the adab of the talib ilm. The person who wants to learn, what are they supposed to do? So far, أولا أن يتجمل في هيئته وفي صورته, is that they should come looking nice. The look should be nice. ثانيا أنه يجلس أمام المعلم مقبلا عليه, that they come and they sit in front of the teacher, as Jibril did. He came and he sat, as they're going to mention next, he came and he sat right directly in front of the teacher. Who's teaching? The Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He came and sat directly in front of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. ليتلقى منه العلم, so he can take knowledge from him. He says ولا يعرض عنه, and that he doesn't turn away from the teacher. ولا يلتفت, he doesn't turn away. ولا يمزح, and he doesn't play. ولا ينشغل, he doesn't busy himself with something else. بل يكون مقبلا على المعلم بجسمه وبفكره, that the person, and this shows Islam covers all angles. When we go to learn, we should do what? Sit in the back of the class, as most of us might have done coming up. Now we're supposed to do what? Take the example, Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, sit in the front. Sit in the front so that we can get as much benefit as possible. He says that you sit in front of the teacher لِأَلَّا تَفُوتَهُ فُرْصَةُ التَّعَلُّمِ, so that a person doesn't miss out on any benefit that the teacher is given. طيب قوله فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. He says, so now أسند جبريل ركبتيه إلى ركبتي النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. He came so close to him that his knees were touching the knees of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, if we look at the picture, that the Sahaba don't know who he is. Nobody knows him, right? Nobody knows who he is. Who's narrating the story? Huh? Huh? Nah. Hadith Jibril is narrated on who? Omar ibn Khattab. Right? Abdullah ibn Omar narrated the people who came to talk to him from Iraq, asking about the Qadariyah. When they came and asked about the Qadariyah, Abdullah ibn Omar told them all of that, and he narrated this hadith, which is a proof that you have to believe in the Qadar. His point of mentioning this hadith is this hadith by itself is a proof that you have to believe in the Qadar. So when he said all of that, he narrated the whole hadith just for that one thing. But the hadith is on Umar ibn al-Khattab, who also narrated the first hadith. Tayyib. Umar was known to be, strong, al-Faruq, right? Umar is narrating the story. The man walks up all the way into the face of the Prophet ﷺ, sits his knees in front of him. Nobody knows him. Did he jump up, grab him? Huh? Nah, he didn't. And this is Omar narrating the story. Tayyib. It says the man came up and he sat so close that his knees were touching the knees of the Prophet ﷺ. Muqbilan lahu wa qareebun minhu, very close to him. And this shows that what? For the student, or the person who goes to learn, if they follow this example, that they should sit close to the teacher. If they don't sit close to the teacher, what's the possibility? What's possible to happen if a person is not sitting close to the teacher?
He might not hear.
Huh? He might not hear. It's not a trick question, right? He might not hear. That's why when you go to the service of the ulama, you see people rushing to get up front, because all the time the microphones are not good. Or sometimes the sheikh speaks, they're old. Some of them speak it's not clear. Some of them speak clear, some of them not clear. Even if you sit in the front, So if you get there late and you're in the back,
I realized that in school.
yeah,
Always sit in the front.
always sit in the front.
Always.
And this is not restricted to, it's not like only restricted to the masjid. If you're going somewhere to learn something, the most benefit is going to be in the front. There's no distractions in the front. Most of the distractions are in the back of the class. Most of the people in the back of the class can't hear. Most people in the back of the class talking. So we've been taught this over 1,000 years ago. طيب. And he says exactly that, so that he can hear or that something doesn't pass him. طيب. Now he says, Omar. He says, after the man put his knees to the knees of the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَوَضَعَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ وَضَعَ Jibril كَفَّيْهِ. Jibril took his hands and he put his hands on his thighs. So he's sitting in front of the Prophet ﷺ. He takes his hands and he put his hands on his thighs. يعني على فخذي جبريل. وهذا فيه أن متعلم ينبغي أن يكون بصورة هادئة مؤدبة. And this shows that a person, when they go to learn, that they should have good adab, soft, gentle, calm, relaxed. Right? He goes always sit right in front of the teacher, hands on his thighs, on his own thighs. طيب. He says, and then he began to ask questions. And then he begins to ask questions. He didn't just come right in and start asking questions. He came in, sat close as possible, sat in front of him, directly paying attention, and then he began to ask questions. He says, سأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو في الحقيقة عالم بالجواب لكنه سأل Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam for a reason. طيب. Jibril came asking a question that he already knew the answer to. What is the benefit in asking a question that you already know the answer to? If you already know the answer, why would you ask the question again? Hey, yo, but the other people that are sitting there may not know the answer, which is a form of teaching. A form of teaching. As Shaykh Abdul Razak mentioned in his explanation, that the person who does that, they ask a question that they already know the answer, not to show off, or not to confuse people, or not to argue with the person teaching, but the person who does that, they ask a question in order that the other people there who may not know can learn something. He said that person receives the reward of the teacher, as this is a form of teaching through question and answer. Because everyone, as he said, everyone is not able to teach. Everyone may not be able to teach, but the person who directs a person, as it comes in the Hadith, whoever directs a person to some good, then he gets the reward of the person that he directed. So, by asking the question and the other people are learning, they get the reward of teaching. So he came asking the question even though he already knew the answer. لِيُعَلِّمَ أَصْحَابَهُ. So that the Sahaba could learn وَهَذَا فِيهِ تَعْلِيمٌ بِطَرِيقَةِ السُّؤَالِ وَالْجَوَابِ لِأَنَّهُ أَنْبَهُ لِلذِّهْنِ. And this is called teaching. This type of teaching is called teaching by question and answer. Why? Because it brings more awareness to a person. So what happens? The teacher, he asks the student a question first in order to get the student to pay attention. Now he's thinking about the question, right? They're aware, they're ready. And then the teacher answers the question. Opposed to if the teacher just runs everything out, the student might miss something. It could be a time where they doze off, they're not paying attention for 4 seconds and they miss something important, right? But with the question and answer, generally it brings more awareness to the second thing that's about to be said, or the issue that's at hand. So he says, فَقَالْ أَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِسْلَامِ. Yani, inform me about the reality of al-Islam. What is al-Islam? What is al-Islam? بَيِّن لِي حَقِيقَةَ الْإِسْلام. He says, فلا بد لأنه لا بد من معرفة الحقيقة الإسلام فلا يكفي أن الإنسان ينتسب إلى الإسلام أو يقول أنا مسلم وهو لا يعرف حقيقة الإسلام. It's not enough that a person says they're Muslim, I practice Islam, and they don't know what Islam is. Right? They don't know what Islam is. And what the Prophet ﷺ did in this hadith is he clarified al-Islam clearly. How many people, when asked, what is Islam, give this answer? What is Islam? Islam is peace. Right? What does Islam mean? Islam means peace. Or Islam is equality. Even though the religion may promote that, Islam promotes peace. Islam promotes justice, right? All of Islam promotes those things, but what is Islam? The Prophet ﷺ, he responded, and when his response is a response that should be used. He says, لأنه إذا لم يعرف حقيقة الإسلام لم يعقل به. If a person doesn't know the reality of Islam, right? How can he even implement it if you don't know what Islam is? Right? He says, if كيف يعمل بشيء يجهله. How does a person implement something that they're ignorant of? How does a person implement something that they're ignorant of? Which is a problem we have today. We have the problem, mushkila, that we have now, is we think it's okay that we look like Muslims. We have Muslim names. Children have Muslim names, but we don't learn. We're ignorant on a major level. And we think it's okay. Don't judge me. We think it's okay to be ignorant. Or the people who try to learn, people want to, make fun or point at them as if they're doing something against the religion. Right? And the ulama, they describe two types of ignorance. They say one ignorance is an ignorance that is a person, they don't know and they know they don't know. I don't know. And that's not aib. That's not something that's embarrassing. As Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh said, al-jahlu laysa aiban. Being ignorant is not aib. It's not something to be embarrassed about, to be ignorant. He said, but the aib thing, what is embarrassing is that a person remains ignorant. A person remaining ignorant, when they have the ability to learn something, what excuse do we have Yom Al-Qiyamah? Especially in a town like this. What excuse do we have Yom Al-Qiyamah that a person is Muslim for 5-10 years and they don't know how to make wudu properly? Muslim for 5-10 years and their mouths sound like the people on the street corner. Muslim woman, 5-10 years, doesn't know how to dress. Don't know how to make ghusl after the menses go off. Do we have an excuse as the excuse for the ignorant person? That has some detail. It's not everybody. Everybody doesn't get an excuse for being ignorant. Everybody doesn't get an excuse for being ignorant. Al-udhr al-jahl, that issue of being excused due to ignorance, is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's for people who haqiqatan, in reality, they may not even have a way to learn, as the example they give. For example, a person living, let's just say, for example, in Mecca, or anywhere in Saudi Arabia, or any Muslim country. They call me a van, the Muslims are praying 5 times a day, right? A person comes and they say they didn't know that the salat was obligatory. I didn't know the salat. I didn't know I had to pray 5 times a day, right? That's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable excuse based on their location, right? It could be another place though. Could be places in America. We call it the sticks. Out there in, one of those states. One of those states out in the suburbs somewhere where people, maybe they never heard about Islam. Maybe. It's possible. Their situation is different than the person in the land of the Muslims, right? It's not that everyone who claims to be ignorant will be excused. Everyone who claims to be ignorant will not be excused. It's detailed to it. That's why we can't be comfortable not knowing. It's not something we should be okay with. Not knowing. He says, كيف يعمل بشيء يجهل. How does a person practice Islam and they never learned Islam? لا يمكن. That doesn't take 10 years of study. Huh? We don't go to anybody if they say they're a doctor. We got to go to the dentist, right? You want to go to the best dentist that you can find. You're looking around and searching high and low, asking people, do you know a good dentist? Right? We don't just go to any doctor. We don't just go to any car mechanic. We don't even spend on it. When it comes to the car, we don't go to anybody. We want to go to the specialist. I make sure when I spend my money, I get all of my worth out of my money. Right? But when it comes to the religion, it's a backseat, which is a problem. It's a problem in progression in our communities. That's a problem, that we don't see the need. We don't see the need that there's a need for not just the adults, for our children to learn the basics. We're not saying we got to send everybody overseas, but basics, basic Islamic beliefs that a lot of the adults don't know. A lot of the adults don't know. So it says, how does a person implement something that they're ignorant of? فالإسلام لا يكفي فيه الانتساب مع الجهل. Islam, it is not enough. It is not enough al-intisab, that a person attributes themselves to Islam and they're ignorant. And they're ignorant. It's not enough. بل لا بد من معرفة حقيقته حتى يؤديه على وجه المطلوب. But it's a must that a person has to know Islam, the basics. We're not even talking about, because the new thing is, well, I'm not a student anyway. I ain't a student. I ain't got to do all that. I don't have to do all that because I'm not a student of knowledge. I'm not an imam. I'm not a sheikh. I'm regular. That's the new. I'm regular. You the sheikh. You the. As if a regular Muslim is okay for the regular Muslim to be ignorant about the basics. That's another false, Allah Alam, where it comes from. More than likely it comes from an ignorant person. More than likely. As the Prophet ﷺ said, طالب العلم فريضة على كل Muslim. And in one narration, كل مسلمة, that the Prophet ﷺ said that seeking knowledge, learning your Islam is obligatory on every Muslim. So where do we get off that? That's for the students. That's for the imams of the masjid. I don't have to learn. We can't live Islam based on 3-line posts on the internet, quotes. That's not how the religion goes. How do you practice something if you have no knowledge of it? And this was the tafsir of Al-Fatiha. Tafsir Al-Fatiha, that Allah, don't make me from the people who you are angry with, right? Those people who didn't have knowledge and they acted upon that knowledge. They acted upon their ignorance. They didn't have any knowledge, they were ignorant, and they worshiped based on ignorance, right? Meaning the Christians. And those people who had knowledge and they didn't implement the knowledge. And we say that every day in Surah Al-Fatiha. And then we turn around and say, oh, that's for the students. I don't have to do that. That's for the sheikh. That's for the imam. I'm just a regular 9-to-5 worker. I don't have to know that. We have to know everything that it takes for us to practice Islam on a daily basis. Aqidatan, from belief in Allah. Fiqhan, how to worship. Salat, wudu. Brothers and sisters are married. Ghusl. Ghusl. Children are reaching puberty. They have to know how to make ghusl. Right? All of those things, they're basics. Those are not, overseas to go learn them. Right? Those are basic Islamic principles that have to be known. So the Prophet ﷺ, after that, when the man asked him, he said, أخبرني عن الإسلام أخبرني عن الإسلام فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الإسلام أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا وهذه. That was his response. He responded with the 5 pillars. That was his response. What is Islam? He said the 5 pillars. That is Islam. That a person practices the 5 pillars. وهذه أركان الخمسة لا بد من أدائها مع اعتقاد القلب. That a person has to do these 5 pillars along with the belief in the heart that they are obligatory. Right? وما زاد على هذه الخمسة من الواجبات أو من المستحبات وترك المحرمات والمكروهات فإنه مكمل لهذه الأركان. Whatever a person does above these 5, right? That is considered extra, which is jayyid, mumtaz, good. But at the least, we're supposed to be praying 5 times a day. That's like normal. Kids in the Muslim countries pray 5 times a day. A lot of us, we have to work up to it. If we're not praying 5 times a day, it's something to work towards. We shouldn't be okay just saying I got 2 in a day. You got 2 in, we got to be going for 3 tomorrow. Got to be going for 4 and 5. We can't just stick with, the bare minimum. We have to go for what we're supposed to be doing. He said anything after the 5 pillars is basically extra, which is good. It's completing a person's religion. فهذه الأركان هي الأساسات التي يقوم عليها الإسلام. These 5 pillars are the pillars that Islam stands upon. These are the pillars that Islam stands upon. ثم يأتي بقية الأعمال من واجب ومستحب. And then those other things come after these 5. Anything extra is after these 5. أما إذا ترك العبد هذه الأركان أو ترك شيئا منها فلن ينفعه ما عداها من الواجبات أو المستحبات. But if a person leaves off these 5, right? A person doesn't practice the 5 pillars, the basic 5 tenets of Islam. For them to do anything that is extra is of no benefit. Right? For example, it's like a person not praying Salat al-Maghrib. If a person doesn't pray Salat al-Maghrib, they come to the masjid and they don't pray Salat al-Maghrib, they pray the sunnahs after Maghrib. Right? La yanfa. There's no benefit as you skipped an obligatory act in order to do something that is sunnah. And the sunnah act doesn't hold more than the obligatory act. Same thing, if a person doesn't practice the 5, then, to the best of their ability, then them doing those extra things of no benefit. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do the extra sunnah and things like that. The point being is that the 5 are the arkan. This is the crux of the religion. The crux of the religion is found in these 5 pillars. And everything else stems from these 5. Everything else stems from these 5. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray at night, you shouldn't fast Mondays and Thursdays. You should do all that. But we have to make sure that we're doing the obligatory first. Fasting Mondays and Thursdays all year is mumtaz, excellent. But when you going to make up those 3 days from last Ramadan that you missed? Well then, you still got 5 days from last Ramadan you didn't make up. Right? Those days are obligatory. They don't just fall off. They're, as they say, fidimmatic. They're on your neck till you finish them. If you die, you don't know they're on your neck till you finish them. Right? So those are obligatory. They're 5. You got, if you have however many days there were. A person doesn't do those and they do sunnah acts all year long, which is fine. But you can't let that next Ramadan come and you haven't done your obligatory act. What benefit was it doing all those sunnahs and you left off the obligatory acts? And that's the point, that the obligatory basic fundamentals have to be upheld. He says, so these arkan, they're not all of Islam. Right? ليست هي كل الإسلام وإنما هي أركانه فقط. But these are the pillars, the crux. Everything else stems. As Islam is wasi', Islam is widespread. وكل ما أمر الله به وترك ما نهى عنه فإنه من الإسلام. And this is important. Everything that Allah commanded us with, is from Islam. Right? And this is the ta'rif, the definition of worship. Ibadah. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, Al-ibadah kullu ma yuhibbuhu Allah wa yardah min al-aqwal wal-a'mal al-zahir wal-batina. Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that worship is everything that Allah loves and is pleased with. Right? Whether it's a statement or an action. Whether it's something that a person can see you doing or if a person can't see you doing. Right? And this is Islam. Anything that Allah commands us with is worship. How do we know that? How do we know that everything Allah commands us with is worship? Huh? What if it's something He commanded that's not exactly from the 5 pillars? Kunu ma'a sadiqeen, as Allah says in the Quran. Be with the truthful. Right? Kunu ma'a sadiqeen. Huh?
It's like submitting. It's submission in terms of everything you do because of the fact that if it came from Allah and you try to do it, it's like you are submitting. Submission is worship.
Jayyid. That's close. Jayyid. If Allah commands us to do something, then whatever He commands us to do, it must be pleasing to Him. Is Allah going to command us to do something that's displeasing to Him? Alright? And there could be many things throughout the Quran that Allah praises and He commands to do. So you know, if Allah commands us to do something, right, it falls under the definition of worship. Because Allah is only going to command us to do something that is pleasing to Him. He's not going to command us to do something that's displeasing to Him and gain His anger. Right? So Shaykh al-Islam said, كُلُّ مَا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَيَرْضَاهُ. Everything that Allah loves and is pleased with is from worship. Which makes it a lot more spacious than just Salat in Ramadan. Right? It's a lot more vast than that. Those are the main things, the crux, but there's a lot more to Islam than these 5 pillars. But these 5 pillars are the crux, as we say. طيب. I think we'll stop there, inshallah. We'll stop here where it says, فَالْإِسْلَامُ يَشْمَلُ فِعْلَ الْأَوَامِرِ وَتَرْكَ الْمَنْهِيَّاتِ فإن نقض شيء فإنه إن كان النقض في الأركان فإنه لا يصح له الإسلام. Islam comprises all of the commandments of Allah. Everything that Allah commands to do is considered to be from the religion, even if it's not in this hadith of the 5 pillars. Right? He says also, Islam includes tark al-manhiyat, leaving off the prohibitions, leaving off those things that Allah prohibited us from. If Allah told us to stay away from something, then we stay away from it. That is from worship. As if we leave off the haram, that's pleasing to Allah. And worship is anything that is pleasing to Allah, whether it's a statement, whether it's an action. So when we leave off foul language, when we leave off resembling the kuffar in their speech, and we leave off behaving like people who Allah said about them in the Quran that they're the worst of creation, when we leave off behaving like them, it's pleasing to Allah. When we behave and carry ourselves like we've been taught in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it's pleasing to Allah. As Allah said in the Quran, that whatever the messenger gives you, then take it. And whatever he prohibits you, then abstain from it. Whatever the messenger gives you, take it. What the messenger gave us was a sunnah in totality, which includes aqidah, it includes fiqh, worship, it includes adab. It includes adab also, that we have to behave like Muslims. And that's one of the biggest problems. One of the biggest problems after not understanding who Allah is, not understanding who our Lord like we should, it leads to the next problem, that our behavior is terrible, Allah musta'an. And that what? That look, especially where we live, it gives a bad message to the non-Muslim. It gives a bad message to the non-Muslim. And we have to remember that we will be held accountable. We'll be held accountable. Everyone will be held accountable Yom Qiyamah for their actions. And we don't want to be people who, because of our actions, because of our behavior, people turn away from the religion. Based on, specifically, a person refers and he says, I know a brother named such and such. He said he's a Muslim and he does this. I could never be a Muslim. Alhamdulillah. Or I know a sister, she says she's Muslim, but she does this. I couldn't be a Muslim. That's what y'all, that's how it goes. Most people, they go on what they see. So we have to be careful and make sure that we're upholding our bargain. We said the Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And there's a lot that comes with that we are responsible for. Every person to their own capability. We'll stop there, inshallah ta'ala. We'll start with the first pillar in detail next week, which is the Shahadatain. The Shahadatain. As he asked him, what is Islam? He said, and tashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Number one, that you have to believe in Allah, that there's no worthy worship except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah. There's a lot that comes with that. There's a lot that comes with that. The first thing you don't have to do, I'm not saying that it's not important. What's more important is the Iman Billah. More important is a person's belief in Allah Jalla wa Ala. If a person's belief in Allah is correct, the actions will show that. Why is it, or why do we think people become Muslim? A lot of times we might not see it in the men. Why do we think women become Muslim? They throw on khimar, hijab, right? 6 months go by and they back with nothing on. It takes Iman. If the Iman was correct, if the belief in Allah was correct, it will be hard for her to remove her hijab. If the Iman is strong, it's hard for her to disobey Allah. Openly remove all of her clothing. Because we go from one extreme to the next. Shahada, black, everything. Everything. How within a year's time it's back to nothing? Something's wrong. That means the priorities are not in order. If a person understood the greatness of Allah and their Iman, and they understood Iman Billah, it will be difficult. It will be difficult to disobey Allah openly like that. Because everybody makes mistakes, everybody commits a sin, but to openly come out. And then if you try to advise them, if we advise, as the deen and nasiha, when a person comes to advise, don't judge me. You think you're better than me. I already know that. I'm just going through something. Right? I'm being tested right now. Like, if we understood how to deal with that from Iman, belief in Allah, it will be difficult to disobey Allah openly like that. And also, it takes help from one another, that we help each other in khair, that we help each other in good righteousness. We'll stop there. Any questions? We'll start next week with the first pillar, Ash-Shahadatain. Inshallah, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Sheikh Ibrahim.